Welcome to In Our Words, a weekly segment of LNP's opinion section that highlights some of the week's most thought-provoking issues. The following are the opinions of the LNP Editorial Board and not the news department. Chris and Susan Demko's daughter, Meredith, was killed by a drunk driver July 8, 2014. She was 18. The driver, Thomas Gallagher Jr., had 2 previous DUIs, and his license had been suspended since 2003. His blood alcohol level was nearly 3 times the legal limit, and he had heroin in his system. Gallagher pleaded guilty to third-degree murder. You really don't need to go any further than the Demko family's story to make the case that Pennsylvania's drunken driving laws need updating. A bill introduced last week by State Senator Scott Martin calls for stricter DUI penalties. His bill, which was previously introduced by his predecessor, U.S. Representative Lloyd Smucker, would mandate a person with more than 2 DUIs in a 10-year period be sentenced to at least 2 years in prison and pay a $15,000 fine. We sincerely hope the legislature will act on the proposed legislation, if not by June 30th, the budget deadline, then at least by fall. Martin is right in calling Pennsylvania's existing laws inadequate and ineffective. Discouraging drunken driving and holding offenders accountable should be a legislative priority. Sadly, for about 10 years, until the interlock law, which requires most first-time DUI offenders to have an ignition interlock device on their vehicles to check their breath for alcohol, our lawmakers mostly sat on their hands. Our lawmakers, Republicans and Democrats, need to realize what is at stake here. The Demkos and so many other families already know. T.S. Eliot wrote that April is the cruelest month, and that's certainly held true for Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack. Governor Tom Wolf stripped Lieutenant Governor Stack and his wife Tanya of their security detail last week and limited their mansion staff amid allegations that the Stacks verbally abused state troopers and mansion employees. These allegations are being investigated by the Office of Inspector General. The Stacks reside in the Lieutenant Governor's mansion, the State House in Fort Indiantown Gap. Whether the cruelties to which Stack is being subjected are a matter of karma, we cannot say. What we can say is this: things aren't looking good for Stack's political future. He hopes to be on Wolf's ticket when their re-election comes up next year, but Wolf has, rightly, come down hard on Stack for his alleged transgressions. In a quietly scathing letter, Wolf notified the Lieutenant Governor that he and his wife would no longer have a state police detail. Further, Wolf wrote, "The Department of General Services will provide limited cleaning, groundskeeping, and maintenance at the State House and only under supervision at prearranged times." Supervision, prearranged times, those are the kinds of terms employed when an abusive person meets his victim under the careful watch of a social worker. Clearly, not every lieutenant governor will exhibit Stack's sense of entitlement, but the more lavish the perks, the greater the temptation toward entitlement. And there are more practical considerations at stake here, too. The governor may need a state-owned residence in Harrisburg to entertain elected visitors and conduct the people's business, though Wolf lives in his own home in York County. But the State House, located in Lebanon County, is more than 20 miles from the state capital. If the lieutenant governor needs a residence provided by the Commonwealth, make it a small house or apartment in Harrisburg. And if the lieutenant governor wants a housekeeping staff, he should pay for one out of his own pocket. Given the Commonwealth's projected $3 billion structural budget deficit, the upkeep of the State House doesn't account for much, but an unnecessary expense is an unnecessary expense. That'll do it for In Our Words this week. If you have an opinion you would like to share with us, you can email us at lancasterletters@lnpnews.com. You can also see what we think in the opinion section at lancasteronline.com. I'm Rich Maneri. We'll see you next time.